Good evening, everybody. How are you? I hope you had an amazing weekend, snowy weekend here in the East. A couple of weeks too late, but we have had a white January. Anyway, great stories behind the writing of some of the hit songs that you love, or maybe you don't love, but you always wondered about those songs and how they would come about. Well, we have a couple of different image, a couple of stories. One was inspired by one of my fans or friends on YouTube who had commented about the Benny Mardones song "Into the Night," and someone had referenced that the lyrics were a little creepy, and she had said the young lady in the chat under the song, "You should read about the lyrics." Hey, Emmanuel. So I did, and pretty much Into the Night, I think, came out in 1980 or 79, and big hit. Well, this is the story, one of many. Benny Mardones was living in Spanish Harlem, Riverside Drive, Manhattan. And in his building, there was a family, a husband and wife, and three children. They were teenagers, 17, 15, 14, whatever. And he was like the resident rock star. He had the first album out in 77 on Private Stock Records. So he was kind of a little bit of a star. And then he ended up writing Into the Night a couple of years later. But they'd see the kids around the building, and everything was fine. Nice kids. And his son's mother was friends with the family. So one day, there's a knock on Benny's door, and all three of the kids are crying hysterically. And he said, "Oh my God, what happened? Come in." And the 17-year-old girl said, "My father left my mother," and ran off with another woman in the chorus line. A show he was a struggling sax player, and he landed a major show. And instead of helping his family out and being happy that he was going to be successful, he took off with a 24-year-old chorus girl, right? So you can imagine what that did to the family. Family was destitute. He just took off. So Benny put his arms around all three and said, "Things are going to be okay. I'll watch over you." He had no idea how he was going to do it, but it broke his heart. He said it. So what he did was he gave them each a job. He told Sean, who was the boy, after school every day, come to my house and you could run an errand for me. And he gave him a $20 bill every day to go out and get milk, cigarettes, dry cleaning, just a reason for him to do something. And when he came home, he let him keep the change. So he'd end up having like $50 in his pocket. And in 1979, that's like $150. Today's money, the oldest daughter, he paid her to come and clean Saturday mornings in his apartment. And the 18-year-old girl, her name was Heidi, and she was the most devastated because she was daddy's little girl. And she was just devastated, and she couldn't take it, crying constantly. And Benny said, "Look, Heidi, I'm up all night. I sleep late. Even though I'm not a rock star, I live the life. I'm struggling. I'm up all night. And here's my key. Every day before school, open the apartment door, take my basset hound, and take him out, give him a nice walk, pay a little attention to him, right? And, let him do what he has to do outside, come back, feed him, and then go to school. And I'll give you $50 for doing that." So the kids were all holding it together, and they had money in their pockets so they could buy stuff for school and lunch and stuff. Teenagers need things, right? So he was so disgusted with the father that he wanted to wring his neck. And he knew a lot of people from Miami, Benny Mardones, and kind of thought that he'd call some people if he ever saw him again. when he came out with Into the Night, he took care of his sister and his family and bought his mother a house. So what this father did was the exact opposite. So one night, this guy Robert, who wrote songs with him, about a week before they were going to tour for a big album, they were just playing around with lyrics and melodies, and they were working all night, and they noticed it was daylight, and she walks in, 16 or 18, I forget, but she's dressed in a mini skirt, 16 looking like 30. That's how they dressed back then. And she said, "You've been up all night?" And Robbie looked at her, and Benny said, "Yeah." So she comes back in and then leaves. And he looks at his friend Bob, and he goes, "Hey, she's 16 years old. Leave her alone." And this song was basically about this experience, interestingly enough. So thank you to my friend that pointed it out, that it was worth doing a deep dive into the lyrics to find the content and why it was written. Now, there are a lot of backstories in music. One interesting one is Deep Purple, Smoke on the Water. One of the most iconic riffs in rock history. And the story behind it is just as incredible as the riff. It tells the story of a fire that burnt down the Montreux Casino in Switzerland in 1971. Purple was there to record their album Machine Head, and the casino was closed for the winter. The night before they were due to begin recording, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention played a show at the casino. And during the performance, a fan let off a flare that started the fire. While nobody was injured, the fire burnt down the whole casino, and it inspired them to write a song about it. The line "Smoke on the Water" had been attributed to bassist Roger Glover. And his description of the smoke that gathered over the nearby Lake Geneva. And "Smoke on the Water" has gone down in history as one of the greatest rock songs of all time, with a riff that's iconic. But most people wouldn't know the story, but it's a classic, the story as well as the song. Jolene by Dolly Parton. Jolene's inspired by two real-life women that Dolly Parton interacted with in the 70s. The first woman was a redheaded bank clerk who worked at the local bank and often flirted with Parton's husband. Parton would tease her and about women leading her to write what would become one of her best songs. Unbelievable how someone could flirt with your husband and you could write a song about it. The second woman to influence the title of the song was a young fan Parton met who had flaming red hair and was named Jolene. So Parton claims she wrote Jolene the same day as her other most well-known track, "I Will Always Love You," which became a massive hit for Whitney Houston. So not a bad day's work for her. "Can't Get No Satisfaction," Rolling Stones. Satisfaction's interesting. The initial demo, "Can't Get No Satisfaction," was written by Keith Richards in his sleep. In his memoir, Richards explains how he was staying in his flat in Carlton Hill, St. John's Wood, right where Paul McCartney lived. When he woke up in the middle of the night with an idea for a song, he grabbed his guitar and his tape recorder, and he laid down the idea on tape before dropping his pick and falling back to sleep. He was probably stoned out of his head. The next morning, he listened back to the random notes that he had recorded and composed the song with Mick Jagger, writing the lyrics 4 days before they went to the studio and laid down the track. They released it in 1965, and it became one of the Stones' biggest hits and went to number one in many countries. "Tears in Heaven," Eric Clapton. Terrible story. His tragedy. His guitarist friends were on the phone with him about this, and he finally broke down because he didn't tell the story in full until a couple of days. His 4-year-old son was killed in March 91. He fell from an open apartment building window in New York. And it shook him so hard that he took a hiatus from music. And then he scored the movie Rush. That was his comeback. But it was one of those recording sessions during Rush that he came up with Tears in Heaven. Will Jennings helped him, became a worldwide hit number 2 in the Billboard Hot 100. And he didn't want to release the song, but he was persuaded to do so because people thought that it would help with the impact of stories that other people may similarly have about losing a child. So it was in the back of his head, but he really didn't have a reason to write it until he scored the movie. And he thought that was the reason. And it's ambiguous because it could be taken about his son Connor, but it also could be part of the film if you watch the movie. So probably one inspired the other. Ray Charles, What I Say. Great song. The origins of What I'd Say is an improvised jam session that he took part in December 58. He and his band had exhausted their set list, but still had about 12 to 14 minutes to kill. I've gone through that on stage. It's rough. So Charles took to the piano and told his backup vocalists, the Raylettes, listen, I'm going to fool around and just follow me. And the place went crazy, the audience, and they wanted to know where they could buy the single. So he realized he had a smash on his hands. So he quickly entered the studio to record the song, What I'd Say, and it came out 6 months later. But it had some controversy. The sexual nature of the song and his use of gospel tropes got the song banned from several radio stations. But it was his first top 10 hit. That didn't stop it. You know, if you tell people not to do something, they'll buy it more. I Shot the Sheriff. Bob Marley and the Wailers. Clapton covered that song. There's different accounts to the true meaning behind I Shot the Sheriff. Bob Marley once claimed the song was about justice. I want to say I shot the police, but the government would have made a fuss, so I said I shot the sheriff. But it was the same idea, justice. Many people believe it's just a song about fighting against injustice and standing up for your rights. But a former girlfriend, Esther Anderson, of his, said the song has a much darker meaning. She wrote and co-directed the 2011 documentary Bob Marley, The Making of a Legend, and she said it's about birth control. Marley didn't believe in birth control. And the lyrics, Sheriff John Brown always hated me for what? I don't know. Every time I plant a seed, he said, kill it before it grow. That kind of is self-explanatory, isn't it? Sweet Caroline, Neil Diamond. It'll always be linked to Neil Diamond. It never reached the top of the charts. It finished, I think, number 4 or 5 in Billboard. And he gave several explanations to the meaning of the song throughout his life. He said that Caroline was inspired by Caroline Kennedy after he saw a picture of the 7-year-old Kennedy. And he was also claiming the song's about his son, Marsha, his then wife, Marsha, with the name Caroline because it fit the melody. It's a classic. I Am the Walrus. Now, the funny thing is, I Am the Walrus, I spoke to Jack Douglas's nephew, and he gave me an account of this song. It's no surprise to you that I Am the Walrus, I'm sure, is inspired by LSD. It's 3 different compositions that Lennon was working on. Several lyrics written while he was taking acid. Lewis Carroll's 1871 poem, The Walrus and the Carpenter, which he loved. He loved Lewis Carroll stuff. And Procol Harum's 67, A Whiter Shade of Pale influenced the writing of the song. Leonard wanted to confuse listeners. because at the time of its release, Beatlemania was at a fever pitch, and people were doing deep dives into the lyrics. And he found out that a professor in one of the major colleges was actually doing a song depicting Beatle lyrics and what they meant. So he figured he'd give them a run and try to figure it out. Now, he confirmed the song was made up, but decades later, people still think that it means something. Now, the authorized biography of the Beatles in Hunter Davis in the mid-60s, he interviewed all the Beatles. He spent some time with each of them. He went to John's house. John's house had a big pool, and it was overlooking kind of like the small town. And they were in the pool, and they weren't talking about much. And then they heard sirens. Whew, 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 whew. And I am he as you are me. And he went in and started writing. True story. That's where the music came from. Blue Suede Shoes, Carl Perkins, was made famous by Elvis Presley. And there's two backstories to this hit song. Now, in Johnny Cash's autobiography, Ring of Fire, he explained how he came up with the idea for Blue Suede Shoes. He was on tour with Perkins and Elvis in 55. Cash told him about an airman he met while serving in the military who referred to his shoes as blue suede shoes and demanded that no one step on them. Well, who's going to step on your shoes anyway? But Cash told Perkins to write a song about the shoes. And he replied, I don't know anything about shoes. How could I write a song about shoes? The other version was discussed in Go Cat Go, The Life and Times of Carl Perkins, in an autobiography. Perkins claimed he got the motivation to write the song while observing a crowd during one of his shows, in one of his own shows. He recalled hearing a boy telling off his partner for stepping on his shoes, suede shoes, in fact. And Perkins discovered they were blue. Don't know how that happened. And Perkins started working on the song that night. He was so amused. Dude looks like a lady, Aerosmith. It came under fire when it was first released. It was transphobic, people thought. But it has nothing to do with transsexuals or non-binary or anything like that. It was written about Vince Neil, Motley Crue's frontman. Tyler and the rest of the band went to a bar and mistook Neil for a woman due to his long blonde hair and feminine appearance. Makeup was big in the 80s on these guys. And Aerosmith joked about Neil looking like a lady. And the seeds were sown, and they went in and started writing it. From 1987, Permanent Vacation became one of their biggest hits and one of their great live performances. Beastie Boys, You Gotta Fight for Your Right to Party. That got them noticed. It dropped in 1986. One of the few songs I didn't shout, the Elliot, the DJ, would play, even though it was a 50s, 60s club. And he played Hot, Hot, Hot by Buster Poindexter. But written as a parody of a frat boy culture, it was meant as a joke. And it was lost on audiences who thought that the song was a party anthem. You got to fight for your right to party, right? And it has an interesting place in their history. One of their biggest tunes, but they don't really like it. To a man, they've said they don't like it. And the only thing that upsets them, they reinforced certain values of some people in our audience when our own values were actually totally different. Mike D said that. There were tons of guys singing Fight for Your Right who were totally oblivious because they were goofing on them, the college frat boys at the time. Katy Perry's Firework. That was a massive hit. And it was inspired by Jack Kerouac's novel On the Road. While dating Russell Brand, he recommended she read that. And it resulted in her reading it and coming up with Firework. The line, "Cause baby, you're a firework. Come on, show 'em what you're worth. Make 'em go, ah, ah, ah," is based on Kerouac's line, "Burn, burn, burn." like a fabulous yellow Roman candle exploding like spiders across the stars. And in the middle, you see the blue center light pop, and everyone goes, ah. That's what she said. Don't blame me. So, of course, you have Yesterday. Paul McCartney came up with the tune. He lived in Jane Asher's house on the top floor next to Peter Asher's room. There was an old piano, and he woke up with the tune in his head. And he started playing it on the piano, and the original lyrics were scrambled eggs, baby, I love your legs. And he shopped it around asking people. He thought he ripped it off. He thought he must have heard it. And, he just was in the middle of the night, heard it in his sleep. But he must have heard it somewhere. And he kept on humming it to everyone, George Martin and people around Abbey Road. Have you ever heard of anything like this? And they said no. So finally he realized, hey, he didn't rob it. It was his. And then he reworked the words. And it was one of the few songs that the music came first from McCartney back in those days. So, you look at all this stuff, and there's so many great, great songs and great stories. I know 25 or 6 to 4. Terry Kath was sitting in Hollywood, near Hollywood and Vine, in an apartment, and he was up all night trying to come up with an idea. He looked at the clock, and it said either 25 or 26 minutes to 4 a.m. And that was 25 or 6 to 4. So you see that some of the stories, as interesting as they may be, aren't all that interesting. It's just a way that people let out certain genre-biting material. Let me say hello. I'm trying to see why you do hear me, right? You do hear me, right? Have you heard me, guys? Because there was something wrong with the computer here. You do hear me. Hey, Dina. Loud and clear. Good. Now I have to find out why my camera's not working. I'll find it. Let's see. It doesn't look like my camera's working. And there it goes. I'm glad you hear me. You have heard me. Thank God. I don't know if that was good for you. I was having a problem with my camera. I just noticed that. Oops. And we're in color. See that? So, been doing the exercises. Gee, with my arm, I can't lift it. It's this one. So, yeah, interesting stories. I'll give you a story of how I wrote my song for my son. And I'll play one of these songs for you. I'll actually share it. See if I can find it for you. Okay. I'm going to share one of these with you. I better wake up tonight, huh? Hello, everybody. How you doing? I was asked to put another song up, so this one was written for my son. I have the date inside. It had to be 15 years ago, and it's called "Hello, My Little Man."
little man, I could hardly understand just when you got so big and strong. I was a lot like you, hell, I even looked like you, but that was many years ago. I always try my best to put you through the tests, send you out in life prepared, and with a little luck to help you through the tough stuff, so you would never go running scared. And I see every day, every way, where is the time gone? And I see every day, every way, where is the time gone? Hello, my little man, as per all your childhood plans, you have a family of your own. And if times get rough, to help you through that stuff, your dad will always be at the other end of that phone. And I sing every day, every week, where is the time gone? And I sing every day and every way, where is the time gone? It's gone along, it's gone along.
Yeah, that was for my son. I recorded that. That's about 15 years ago. I'm actually a lot thinner now. Denny, I thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, that's for my son. So I remember how I wrote that too. Thanks, Denny. I was having a tough time. Bipolar, the usual nonsense. And I was looking at pictures. Thank you, G. Looking at pictures. And he was very young. And he was probably 15 when I wrote that. And I was looking at when he was 4 or 5. And I just got very upset. And the guitar was always by my bedside. I have like 7 guitars. And so what I did was I just grabbed it, started fiddling around. And the funny thing is, my Colby was about 2 at that point. And I used to call him, "Come here, little man." So I have a feeling that it's about my son, but Colby inspired me to write about my son, if that makes any sense. I think. So that was pretty much where that came from. And if I've been writing, I've copywritten 200 songs. I wrote a musical for a high school, their sing product. If you ask me to write a song, I can do it. I don't like to, but I've been doing it for 45 years. I can do something if you told me to write about something. But really, I like to write on feel. So I'll have a plethora of stuff come out for 3 weeks and then not write anything for 8 months. Yeah, Denny, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Denny. But yeah, so Colby was involved in every part of my life, every part. And he still is. He's still here. He's right here on that bed many times. Um, oh, okay. Denis, like Demi. When I used to hang out with Demi more in the city, our name is Demi, and everyone would call her Demi, and it bothered her. But she stopped uh, talking to people. Danae. Oh, I'm sorry. Danae. I love that even more. What a great name, Danae. Sounds like Michelle Mabel. Oh, I got to write a song right now. Uh, Danae, why won't you stay with me tonight? The time is right. So, yeah, I hope you like the shorts that I put on tonight. I tried to do some different music tonight, but as they would sing in the '80s, anywho, there's some great stories of songs. I did a song for my friend's father. Yes, G. How sucky is that that our dogs have met before we have? We are going to soon because I'm going to get out to Atlantic City. So, really, well, we got some snow here the last couple of days. I wrote a song about my friend's father when my friend's father had passed. And pretty good song, actually. So, as you know, I love music. Danae, I'm going to use that name continually now. That means a lot to me. It really does, because sometimes I feel like I see other people with millions of people watching them, but this isn't about the views. It's about the people I've met, and you're one of them now. So thank you. I really do appreciate that. And with a cool name like Danae, Christ. I'll never forget. When I'm 90, laying there, I'll say, I had a friend today. I probably won't sound like that. But so, yes, they are. I believe we will. I want to show you something. How you know that your dog really loves you. I hope you can. You'll be able to see this on here. This was a couple of weeks. My dog couldn't hear anymore, and he couldn't see. But
he's lost 3 pounds.
But he still kissed me no matter what. What?
Hey, he's lost 3 pounds. Thank you.
Still kissed me. He must have heard the love in the heart. He was close to my heart. How much snow, Emmanuel? Watch shoveling snow, because then you're brushing something off your shoulder and it's the floor. You have to be careful. And if it's 8 or 9 inches, Mitch, don't scream, "I Poppy." But yeah, we had a little tonight and yesterday. We did. So, everyone, thank you for coming in. I hope I didn't bore you. Danae, thank you so much. I really am honored. I really am. And all of you have an amazing week. South Texas. I went to train in 1987 or 86 in Texas, and the Dallas airport was one of the first airports with those escalators that run the walkways. Yeah, he was amazing. They are amazing, and I'm so happy. Thank you, Danae. I'm glad we found each other as well. I'll be on tomorrow or Tuesday, some subject. Have a wonderful night. Stay warm wherever you are, and know that I love you guys. See you soon.